Life becomes effortless when you start living with a higher principle, because you are no longer pulled in every direction by temporary wants and superficial goals. When your choices are guided by something larger than yourself, each step feels meaningful and you move with a sense of ease rather than constant struggle. The mind, which is usually restless and seeking satisfaction from outside, finds calm when it aligns with a deeper intelligence and life begins to flow naturally. The constant tension of wanting and needing diminishes because your actions are rooted in a purpose beyond momentary gain. This effortless state comes from understanding that the universe has its own rhythm, and when you live in harmony with it, you stop forcing outcomes. You learn to trust that life has a way of unfolding, and your role is not to control everything, but to act consciously within it. Decisions become clearer, not because the world changes, but because your perspective shifts. You start responding to situations with awareness rather than reacting out of fear or desire. Every action gains depth when it is inspired by a principle higher than the self. Living with conscious alignment to the divine also transforms the way you experience challenges. Obstacles no longer feel like attacks against you, but opportunities to deepen your understanding and awareness. When you place something greater at the center of your life, difficulties become teachers rather than burdens. Your resilience increases naturally and the weight of worry or frustration lessens. The sense of struggle fades because you are no longer trying to navigate life solely through personal effort. You are moving with the intelligence of existence itself. This way of living also reshapes relationships and interactions. When you are guided by a higher principle, you begin to see the essence of others rather than just their actions or appearances. Compassion and patience arise naturally because your focus shifts from self-interest to a larger perspective. Conflicts are handled with understanding rather than aggression, and the energy you bring into every interaction becomes calmer, more centered, and more constructive. Life becomes a reflection of the harmony you cultivate within yourself. Life becomes effortless because it is no longer a series of chaotic pursuits, but a conscious journey. Each moment, each choice, each action carries meaning and alignment. You move with a sense of grace, and even the simplest tasks take on a quality of presence and awareness. By placing a higher principle at the center of life, you find that the burden of constant striving is lifted, and every day unfolds with natural ease and clarity, revealing the profound intelligence that underlies existence. Putting God first is not about rituals or religion, it is about recognizing that there is a greater intelligence orchestrating the universe. Life is full of events and circumstances that seem random, yet there is an underlying order guiding everything. When you acknowledge this intelligence, you begin to see that your life is not just a series of accidents or coincidences, but part of a larger design. This realization brings a sense of calm as you understand that you are participating in something far greater than your personal ambitions or fears. When God becomes the first priority in life, your perspective shifts from self-centered concerns to a broader awareness. You start to notice patterns and connections that were invisible before, and this awareness allows you to act more wisely. Decisions are no longer driven purely by impulse or desire, but are guided by an inner sense of alignment with a higher order. The focus moves from seeking control over life to cooperating with the intelligence that shapes it, which leads to a deeper sense of trust and clarity. Putting God first also transforms the way you handle challenges and uncertainty. Life inevitably brings difficulties, but when you are anchored in the understanding that there is a higher intelligence at work, obstacles are seen as opportunities for growth rather than threats. Fear and anxiety lose their power because you recognize that you are not alone in facing life's complexities. Instead of resisting what comes your way, you learn to navigate circumstances with awareness, patience, and acceptance, knowing that each experience is a part of a greater plan. This shift in focus deeply influences relationships and interactions with others. When the divine is first in your life, you begin to see the presence of that intelligence in every person you meet. Compassion, patience, and understanding arise naturally because your attention is no longer confined to personal gain or ego-driven motives. Conflicts become less about winning or losing and more about recognizing the shared essence in all beings. Life becomes less reactive and more conscious, fostering harmony in both personal and social spheres. Putting God first is about living with awareness and alignment rather than following prescribed rituals or external rules. It is a continuous practice of observing, surrendering, and participating in life with a sense of higher purpose. Every choice, thought, and action gains depth when guided by this consciousness. By recognizing and honoring the intelligence orchestrating the universe, you experience life with clarity, peace, and a sense of profound connection that transcends ordinary understanding. When you prioritize the divine in your life, your perspective on every situation begins to change. Ordinary events take on a new significance, and even small actions are infused with meaning. Life stops feeling like a random sequence of tasks and starts to feel like a purposeful journey. Decisions are no longer made purely based on convenience or immediate gain, but with awareness of their deeper impact. This alignment brings a sense of clarity that the mind alone cannot produce, and you find yourself moving through life with greater ease. Challenges, which once felt overwhelming, begin to serve a new purpose. Each difficulty becomes an opportunity to learn, grow, and deepen your understanding of yourself and the world around you. When the divine is first, obstacles are no longer seen as punishments or setbacks, but as necessary steps in the evolution of your consciousness. This shift in perception allows you to face problems with courage, patience, and resilience, knowing that every challenge contributes to your development. Your actions gain depth because they are no longer motivated solely by personal desire ego. When guided by a higher principle, even the simplest tasks carry significance and intentionality. You begin to act with awareness, choosing words, thoughts, and deeds that resonate with a larger purpose. Life transforms from a series of mechanical routines into a conscious practice where every moment becomes an opportunity to align with something greater than yourself. Relationships also take on a new dimension when the divine is prioritized. You start seeing the essence in others rather than just their behavior or role in your life. Compassion, patience, and understanding naturally emerge because your attention is no longer confined to self-interest. Conflicts and misunderstandings are approached with wisdom and a sense of connection, allowing interactions to become more harmonious and meaningful. Placing the divine first allows life to flow with a sense of direction and purpose. You become less reactive and more aware, more centered and calm even in the midst of uncertainty. Each decision, each action, and each experience contributes to your growth and understanding. Life becomes a conscious journey where every moment is valued and challenges are embraced as steps toward a deeper, more fulfilling existence. The human mind is constantly pulled in multiple directions, chasing desires, reacting to fears, and weighing countless possibilities. It rarely finds a moment of true stillness because attention is scattered between what has happened, what might happen, and what is happening. This constant movement creates stress, confusion, and a sense of being overwhelmed. The mind seeks balance, but without a central anchor. it drifts endlessly, making it difficult to experience clarity or peace. By putting God first, you create a center within yourself that grounds all thoughts and actions. This does not mean ignoring the responsibilities of life or withdrawing from the world, but rather establishing a guiding principle that everything else aligns with. When your focus is rooted in something higher, distractions lose their power and the mind becomes capable of observing situations without being pulled into unnecessary drama. Stability begins not from controlling circumstances, but from understanding that your consciousness can remain steady even amidst change. Centering yourself in this way transforms the way you respond to challenges. Instead of reacting impulsively or being swayed by external pressures, you approach life with discernment and calm. Difficult situations no longer feel like storms you must survive, but as experiences through which your awareness can deepen. This centeredness allows you to act with clarity, to choose responses rather than simply being carried by emotion, and to maintain inner peace even when the world seems chaotic. When the divine is placed first in your life, the mind naturally begins to organize itself around this higher principle. Thoughts that once seemed scattered start to find coherence, priorities become clearer, and decisions emerge with a sense of purpose. Inner noise diminishes because the mind is no longer divided between countless competing desires. You become more present, attentive, and capable of experiencing life fully without being trapped in constant mental turbulence. Putting God first allows you to experience stability amidst chaos. It is not about escaping life's challenges, but about creating an unshakable center from which you can navigate them. The mind, once restless and fragmented, learns to flow with awareness and composure. In this state, life becomes less about managing external pressures and more about cultivating inner balance, clarity, and a deep sense of peace that sustains you through every circumstance. When you begin to see the divine presence in every being, your relationships take on a new depth and quality. Interactions that were once based on judgment, expectation, or personal gain start to shift toward understanding and empathy. You begin to recognize that each person is a reflection of the same life energy that flows through you, and this awareness naturally softens harshness and criticism. Connections are no longer about control or comparison, but about genuine appreciation of the essence within others. This consciousness allows you to approach conflicts with calmness and clarity. Instead of reacting out of anger, fear, or ego, you are able to pause and perceive the situation from a broader perspective. You begin to understand the motivations, struggles, and emotions of others, which fosters patience and tolerance. Even in difficult relationships, there is a space for compassion because you see the shared divinity that underlies every human experience. Empathy and kindness become effortless when your relationships are grounded in this awareness. Small gestures of care, thoughtful words, and meaningful attention naturally emerge because you recognize the sacredness in every interaction. Communication becomes more conscious and the energy exchange between people becomes lighter, more harmonious and constructive. The way you treat others reflects the respect and reverence you have for the life force within them. Relationships also begin to transcend superficial labels and roles. You start seeing beyond appearances, social status, or personal differences and connect with the essence that is common to all beings. Friendships, family bonds, and even casual encounters are imbued with a sense of respect and recognition. By acknowledging the divine presence in others, you cultivate a sense of unity and interconnectedness, reducing feelings of isolation, jealousy, or resentment. Living with this consciousness transforms not only your relationships, but your own inner state. As you honor the divine in others, you also deepen your awareness of the divine within yourself. This mutual recognition creates a flow of love, compassion, and an understanding that enriches every aspect of life. Relationships become a mirror reflecting the higher consciousness you cultivate, and through these connections, you experience a profound sense of fulfillment, harmony, and spiritual growth. Success without spiritual grounding often feels hollow because it focuses only on external achievements. Wealth, fame, and recognition can bring temporary satisfaction, but they cannot fill the deeper longing for purpose and connection. When the heart and mind are not aligned with something greater, accomplishments may feel like trophies without meaning, leaving a persistent sense of emptiness even at the peak of achievement. When God is placed first, success takes on a new dimension. It is no longer measured solely by material gain or social status, but by the impact it creates, the consciousness it nurtures, and the alignment it reflects with higher principles. Every achievement becomes a tool for growth, a way to contribute positively, and a reflection of inner harmony rather than ego-driven desire. The pursuit of success transforms into a journey rather than a race, guided by awareness rather than urgency. Grounding success in spirituality also reshapes priorities. Decisions are made with consideration of their long-term effects, ethical implications, and the well-being of others rather than immediate self-interest. Challenges are approached with composure and clarity because the ultimate purpose is not merely to reach a goal, but to grow in consciousness along the way. Achievements become meaningful not because of recognition, but because they are aligned with a larger truth. When God is first, success ceases to create anxiety or fear of loss. Setbacks are no longer devastating because they are seen as part of a larger process, a learning opportunity in the unfolding of life. The pressure to perform or compete diminishes because fulfillment comes from alignment and integrity, not just outcomes. This deeper grounding brings resilience, patience, and contentment, turning every step towards success into a conscious act rather than a frantic chase. Success grounded in spirituality becomes a reflection of inner growth and alignment. It allows life to be measured not by what is accumulated, but by the depth of understanding, compassion, and purpose cultivated along the way. When God is first, achievements are not just external milestones. They become expressions of consciousness, tools for meaningful contribution, and steps toward a life of fulfillment, balance, and enduring peace. Fear, anxiety, and restlessness arise when we constantly see the world through the lens of personal concerns. The mind is always calculating risks, anticipating problems, and imagining worst-case scenarios because it believes everything depends on me and my survival. This self-centered focus creates tension, unease, and a sense of vulnerability because the weight of life feels entirely on your shoulders. Every uncertainty becomes a threat, and the mind struggles to find calm amidst its own projections. When God takes the first place, the center of attention shifts from the individual to something greater. Life is no longer about protecting a fragile ego or controlling every outcome, but about aligning with the intelligence that governs existence. This shift allows you to release the burden of constant self-monitoring, because you understand that life has a natural flow and a larger order beyond personal effort. Anxiety begins to dissolve as the mind stops trying to do everything on its own. Fear loses its grip when you recognize that life is not just about your personal story. Challenges and uncertainties are no longer perceived as personal attacks, but as part of a broader unfolding. When the focus expands from me to the all, every situation is seen in a larger context, reducing the intensity of worry and giving a sense of perspective. Restlessness fades because the mind stops being trapped in the endless cycle of self-importance and imagined threats. Letting God take the first place also brings a sense of trust and surrender. You begin to see that your efforts, while necessary, are part of a larger orchestration. This does not mean inaction or passivity, but a conscious understanding that life's outcomes are not solely dependent on personal control. With this awareness, fear and hesitation are replaced by clarity and courage, allowing you to act decisively and with presence rather than from panic or uncertainty. Placing the divine first transforms the inner atmosphere. The mind becomes lighter, calmer, and more resilient because it no longer carries the entire weight of existence alone. Life feels less like a struggle and more like a flow, where every moment is embraced with awareness rather than anxiety. Fear, restlessness, and worry diminish naturally, and you begin to experience a sense of freedom and spaciousness that comes from being connected to something greater than yourself. Life is full of forces that are beyond human control, and trying to manage everything often leads to frustration and stress. Circumstances, other people's actions, and unexpected events can disrupt even the most carefully made plans. When you insist on controlling everything, you expend energy on things that are not within your reach, and the mind becomes restless. Understanding that life is an interplay of these forces allows you to step back and see situations more clearly without being overwhelmed by the illusion of total control. Putting God first does not mean withdrawing from life or becoming passive. On the contrary, it allows you to act from a place of awareness rather than reaction. You begin to understand which actions matter, where your effort is effective, and where it is better to allow life to unfold naturally. This perspective brings clarity to decision-making and helps you focus energy on what truly contributes to growth and well-being, rather than wasting it on futile attempts to force outcomes. Accepting the uncontrollable aspects of life builds resilience. When challenges arise, they no longer feel like personal attacks or injustices, but as opportunities to adapt, learn and grow. The awareness that there is a larger intelligence at play creates a sense of stability, even in turbulent times. You begin to respond to difficulties strategically rather than reacting emotionally, and this steadiness allows you to navigate life with greater confidence and composure. Putting God first also enhances awareness. You start observing patterns, noticing the subtle connections between events, and understanding how your actions interact with the larger flow of life. This awareness is not passive observation, it is an active engagement with reality that allows you to move harmoniously with circumstances rather than constantly fighting against them. You become conscious of when to act and when to let go, developing a sense of timing and discernment that comes from being attuned to something greater. Embracing the uncontrollable while prioritizing the divine transforms the way you live. Life becomes less about struggle and more about intelligent participation in the flow of existence. You cultivate strength, flexibility and insight, learning to act decisively when needed and to surrender gracefully when necessary. In this balance, you discover a deeper sense of freedom, purpose, and resilience, allowing you to face every moment with clarity and presence. Daily life transforms when your first thought each morning turns toward the divine. Even before you begin the routine tasks of the day, a moment of awareness and connection sets the tone for everything that follows. The mind, usually scattered with worries and distractions, finds a point of stillness and focus. When your consciousness starts the day by acknowledging something greater than yourself, every subsequent thought and action carries a subtle sense of purpose and clarity. When the first action of the day is aligned with higher values, Life itself begins to feel sacred. Simple activities, preparing food, walking, speaking to others, become opportunities to embody awareness and mindfulness. There is a shift from doing things mechanically to performing them consciously with attention and intention. Even small gestures acquire meaning as they are carried out with a sense of presence rather than habit or obligation. The first choice you make consciously sets the rhythm for the rest of your decisions. When you act with awareness, you begin to see the consequences of your actions more clearly and can choose responses that reflect integrity, compassion and wisdom. This practice of conscious choice extends beyond big decisions to every moment, creating a life where awareness guides behavior rather than impulse or habit. Life becomes an ongoing meditation where each action and thought is a reflection of inner alignment. As daily life becomes more meditative, the mind grows calmer and more centered. Distractions, worries and trivial anxieties lose their power because the focus is no longer scattered but anchored in awareness. Each task and interaction becomes an exercise in presence and the ordinary flow of life transforms into an opportunity to practice mindfulness, reflection and connection. You begin to see that even routine moments can carry depth when approached with consciousness. Making the divine the first thought, action and choice brings a profound sense of balance and harmony. Life no longer feels fragmented between work, responsibilities and personal desires. Instead, it becomes a continuous practice of mindfulness where each moment is valued and integrated into a larger sense of purpose. Daily life itself becomes a meditation, a living expression of awareness, presence and alignment with higher principles. Putting God first is an act of surrender, not of weakness. It does not mean giving up your efforts or ignoring responsibilities, but rather acknowledging that there is a higher intelligence guiding life beyond your personal plans. When you accept this, you release the constant pressure to control everything and allow your actions to flow in harmony with a larger order. Surrender in this sense is not passive, it is a conscious choice to align your will with something greater, trusting that life unfolds in ways beyond your understanding. Understanding that your personal agenda is limited brings humility and clarity. No matter how skilled or determined you are, there are countless variables in life that are beyond your control. Accepting this does not diminish your ability to act but enhances it, because actions taken from awareness and alignment are far more effective than those driven by ego and insistence. When you recognize your limits, you stop resisting reality and begin to participate in life with wisdom, choosing where to put your energy and where to let go. Life's intelligence is infinite and it operates in ways that are often invisible and incomprehensible to the human mind. By placing God first, you connect with this infinite intelligence, allowing it to guide your choices and provide clarity in moments of uncertainty. This awareness brings a sense of ease and confidence because you understand that outcomes are not solely dependent on your efforts. The infinite intelligence of life can support you in ways that go beyond personal calculation or planning. Surrendering to this higher intelligence transforms how you perceive challenges and obstacles. What once felt like setbacks or threats become opportunities for growth and learning. You start seeing life as a cooperative process rather than a struggle against circumstances, and your responses become more measured, conscious and effective. Each experience becomes a chance to deepen understanding, strengthen resilience and align more fully with life's natural rhythm. Putting God first fosters a sense of balance and inner freedom. It frees you from the relentless burden of trying to control everything and replaces it with trust, awareness and purposeful action. By surrendering your limited personal agenda to life's infinite intelligence, you live with greater clarity, compassion, and presence. Life becomes less about striving and more about participating consciously, allowing each moment to unfold with grace and meaning. Wealth, fame, and comfort can bring a sense of satisfaction, but they are fleeting and uncertain. Circumstances change, fortunes shift, and recognition fades. Relying on these external markers for stability or happiness creates a fragile foundation because they are not permanent and can disappear without warning. When life is built on these shifting sands, every loss or change brings anxiety, fear, and restlessness. When God is placed first, your foundation is no longer dependent on what can be gained or lost in the world. Consciousness becomes the anchor, providing a steady and enduring sense of stability. Inner awareness and connection with the divine are constants that do not fluctuate with circumstance. This shift allows you to experience life with calmness and composure because your sense of self and security is rooted in something eternal rather than temporary. Prioritizing the divine over material success transforms the way you measure fulfillment. Achievements, possessions, and social status are no longer the ultimate goal but tools to express awareness, compassion, and integrity. Life gains meaning not through accumulation, but through alignment with higher principles. This perspective allows you to enjoy success without attachment. Understanding that true richness comes from consciousness rather than circumstance. Even when challenges arise, the mind remains steady because the foundation is eternal. Losses in wealth, setbacks in career, or changes in social standing do not shake your inner stability. By keeping God first, you cultivate resilience and a sense of perspective that allows you to navigate life with grace. Each experience, whether comfortable or difficult, becomes an opportunity to deepen awareness and strengthen your connection with what is eternal. Placing the divine first creates a life of enduring peace and stability. External achievements may come and go, but consciousness provides an unshakable foundation. When your life is rooted in this eternal awareness, you move through the world with clarity, confidence, and a sense of purpose that is untouched by temporary circumstances. Wealth, fame, and comfort may be fleeting, but the stability gained from prioritizing God is timeless. The ego often resists the idea of surrender because it is built on the illusion of control and self-importance. It wants to dictate every choice, dominate every situation, and maintain a sense of superiority over life and others. This constant need to assert control creates tension, anxiety, and conflict both internally and externally. The ego fears that letting go of this control will lead to weakness or loss, but in truth, it is simply afraid of stepping out of its own limited perspective. Surrendering the ego does not mean giving up your individuality or personal responsibility. It is a conscious decision to recognize that there is a higher intelligence guiding life, one that operates beyond the narrow limits of personal desire and fear. True courage lies in trusting this intelligence and aligning your thoughts, words, and actions with it, rather than trying to control everything according to the ego's limited understanding. This alignment brings freedom from the constant struggle that the ego imposes. When the ego is surrendered, clarity and discernment begin to emerge. Decisions are no longer clouded by selfish motives, fear, or pride. Instead, actions arise from awareness, wisdom, and a deeper sense of purpose. Life starts to flow with less friction because the resistance created by the ego is reduced. Challenges are faced not with tension or insistence, but with presence, patience, and understanding. This does not make life easier in every way, but it allows you to respond more effectively and gracefully. Surrendering the ego also transforms relationships and interactions with others. When the drive to dominate or prove oneself diminishes, communication becomes more open and compassionate. Conflicts are handled with calmness and empathy rather than defensiveness or aggression. People begin to see you as grounded, wise and balanced because your actions are no longer dictated by fear, insecurity, or the need to control outcomes. Letting the ego step aside allows life to unfold in harmony with higher wisdom. Courage is not in asserting control, but in releasing it and participating consciously in the flow of existence. This surrender brings inner peace, resilience, and a sense of connection with something far greater than the personal self. By living in alignment with higher intelligence rather than egoic demands, every moment becomes an opportunity to act with clarity, integrity, and grace. When you begin each day with the divine in mind, your perspective shifts before the world even presents its challenges. The morning becomes a moment of awareness, a space where your mind aligns with higher consciousness rather than immediate distractions or personal desires. This simple practice sets the tone for the day, making your thoughts clearer and your intentions more deliberate. By anchoring yourself in this awareness, you create a foundation of calm that guides every subsequent action. As the day unfolds, your decisions naturally reflect this inner alignment. Choices are no longer made out of impulse, fear or habit, but with consideration of their deeper impact. You begin to see the consequences of your actions more clearly, not just for yourself, but for those around you and for the larger context of life. Decisions taken from this awareness carry a sense of purpose, integrity, and mindfulness, allowing you to move through the day with balance rather than chaos. Speech also transforms when the divine is the first thought of the day. Words, which can often be careless or reactive, become conscious expressions of thought and intention. Conversations are approached with kindness, clarity, and consideration, reflecting the awareness you carry within. Communication ceases to be a tool for ego or competition and becomes a way to connect, share and uplift, infusing interactions with sincerity and compassion. Interactions with others gain depth and harmony when guided by this morning practice. You notice the subtle energies, emotions, and needs of those around you more clearly. Conflicts are less likely to escalate because you approach situations with patience and understanding, responding rather than reacting. Relationships become a reflection of inner balance, where presence and empathy guide engagement rather than habitual patterns or emotional reactivity. Starting the day with the divine in mind creates a ripple effect that touches every aspect of life. Thoughts, decisions, speech, and interactions carry an inherent purity and awareness that elevates ordinary moments into acts of conscious living. Life becomes more centered, harmonious and meaningful, not because circumstances change, but because you move through them with clarity, compassion, and alignment with a higher consciousness. Spiritual practice is not something that exists only on a mat or in a temple. It is woven into the fabric of everyday life. Every thought that arises, every word that is spoken, and every action that is taken can become a conscious expression of awareness and alignment with something greater. When God is placed first, life itself transforms into a living meditation where ordinary activities carry extraordinary significance. This perspective dissolves the separation between the sacred and the mundane, revealing that each moment holds the potential for connection and growth. When your daily life is guided by the divine, choices are made with awareness rather than habit. Even simple decisions, how to speak to someone, how to handle a task, or how to respond to a challenge, are infused with mindfulness and purpose. By aligning every action with a higher principle, you cultivate integrity, compassion, and balance. Life becomes less reactive and more intentional, because each step is consciously taken with respect for the greater intelligence that governs existence. Speech and interaction take on a new dimension when God is first. Words carry weight and intention, no longer just a reflection of impulse or desire. Conversations become opportunities to uplift, to share understanding, and to act with sensitivity. Relationships are strengthened not through strategy or effort, but through the presence and consciousness that naturally flow from living with awareness of the divine. The energy you bring into each interaction becomes harmonious, thoughtful, and constructive. Thoughts themselves begin to reflect this alignment. When God is first, the mind gradually shifts from endless wandering and self-centered preoccupation to a state of clarity and focus. Thoughts of fear, resentment, and doubt are replaced by awareness, acceptance, and insight. This mental transformation supports every word and action, creating a feedback loop where consciousness informs behavior and behavior reinforces consciousness, making spiritual practice a seamless part of life rather than a separate activity. Putting God first allows life to become a continuous journey of connection and presence. Every thought, word, and action becomes a step toward realizing the eternal bond that underlies existence. Life is no longer fragmented into sacred and ordinary moments, but is experienced as an unbroken flow of awareness, alignment, and harmony. In this way, the divine is not a distant concept, but a living reality that permeates every aspect of being, guiding, nurturing, and transforming life from within. Ultimately, when God is first, life takes on a rhythm that feels natural and effortless. The constant push and pull of struggle diminishes because your actions are no longer solely driven by personal desire or ego. Instead, each step is guided by a sense of alignment with a higher intelligence that orchestrates life in ways you may not fully understand. This awareness allows you to move through challenges with calmness, knowing that you are participating in a larger flow rather than fighting against it. When the divine is placed at the center, decisions are made with clarity and discernment. Choices that once felt confusing or burdensome become opportunities to act with presence and purpose. Life is no longer a series of reactive responses to circumstances, but a conscious engagement with reality. Even in moments of uncertainty, there is a sense of trust that outcomes will unfold in the way they are meant to, reducing fear and anxiety and replacing them with confidence and serenity. Living with God first transforms the way you perceive obstacles and difficulties. Challenges are no longer seen as setbacks but as lessons and opportunities for growth. When you flow with the intelligence of existence, every situation is interpreted through the lens of learning, understanding, and expansion. What once seemed like resistance becomes a guide, showing where attention, patience, or action is needed. Life stops being a struggle and becomes a series of experiences that shape consciousness and wisdom. This alignment also changes the way you relate to others. Interactions are infused with compassion, patience, and understanding because you recognize the presence of the same intelligence in everyone. Conflicts lose their sharpness and relationships become reflections of harmony rather than tension. By placing God first, your connection to others deepens and your presence becomes a source of calm and inspiration in both personal and social spheres. Ultimately, when life flows with the intelligence of existence, every moment carries a sense of grace and ease. Success, failure, joy, or sorrow are experienced without attachment or resistance because you are rooted in something larger than circumstance. Life is no longer a battle to be fought, but a journey to be lived consciously. Each breath, each action, and each thought becomes a reflection of alignment, presence, and the quiet, abiding peace that comes from placing God first.